This is chapter 5 of CG Dive's Rigify course, and we'll be rigging this good boy here, but I'll also try to provide information on rigging other types of quadrupeds, such as a horse, a bear, and so on. We will also set up a face rig for the dog, so I think it will be an interesting lesson. Let's dive in. I got this model on Sketchfab. Big thanks to All of Life for making this model available under the CC attribution license, which we can use for the tutorial. So you can download this model from Sketchfab, or as always, you can get my tweaked version from the Academy resource files. I tweaked the model a little bit. I split it into separate meshes, which will make the process a little bit easier. So we have the main body mesh. I'll hide it. I have the eyes, and the original model didn't have eyeballs, so I modeled them. The texture is kind of incomplete, but you'll forgive me for that. We have the upper teeth as a separate object, lower teeth, and whiskers. I also tweaked the mouth shape a little bit. In the original model it was drooping quite a lot, so that can make it hard to rig. I also lifted the ears a little bit. I think that will make them easier to rig and weight paint. And I straightened the tail. Having the tail bent will make it difficult to weight paint. In rigging, it is easier to bend something than to unbend it. So with that, we can start rigging. And again, we'll be using the pre-built meta rigs. So let's press Shift A, Armature, go to Animals. And there isn't a dog meta rig, but we have a wolf, which is similar enough. So create a wolf meta rig, scale it down to about the size of the dog, and as always press Ctrl A and apply the scale. Let's switch to solid shading and enable X-ray. Go to edit mode, select all bones, and move them a little bit from the side view in the Y-axis. Actually, I may want to go to object mode and scale the rig down a little bit more, and again apply the scale. Then I'll go to edit mode and start aligning the bones. So first I want to align the tail, spine, and head. If I place the mouse over a chain of bones and press L, that will select the whole chain. So let's select the tail, spine, and neck and head and press Shift H. This will hide all of the other bones, so that will give me a clearer view and I can start aligning the bones. So this here is the tail, and I can start aligning it. Now I want to align the start of the tail, and I hope you've watched the previous videos and remember that there is a common problem when disconnecting the neck of the character. We have the possibility of the exact same problem in the tail, so do not disconnect the tail from the spine. Box select over here and align these bones in one go. Now I'm going to take care of the connection between the spine and the neck, which is over here. I'll place it around here and then align the rest of the spine. So as in the previous examples, I'm not trying to make the spine anatomically correct. I place it a little bit deeper into the body of the character. Then I'll start moving the neck bones, and this longer bone is the head bone, and the other two bones are neck bones. So this connection here is extremely important. This will become the point of rotation of the dog's head. You should try to find an image showing the anatomy of the animal you're rigging. I'm going to display an image on screen now. And so based on that image, I believe the point of rotation of the head should be around here. Now for this head bone, if you don't intend to rig the face, and I'll show you how to delete the face in a bit, but if you only have a head without a face, you should position this bone something like this. And this will help you with the automatic weights. Although if you don't care about automatic weights, you can also place the bone like this. And because I have a face rig, I'm actually going to position this head bone like this, because then the face bones will be over here and they won't compete with the head bone for the automatic weights. By the way, a slightly random tip: when I move bones with G in the viewport, maybe because of my sausage fingers, but I often press F instead of G, which actually creates a new bone, and that is not good. This can lead to problems when you try to generate, so be mindful of that, and if you press F, you have to undo and make sure that there's no additional bones in your rig. Also, sometimes I press H, which hides the bone. This is less of a problem, but still a little bit annoying. So I'll press Ctrl Z here to unhide it. So this is starting to look okay. So let's press Alt H. And now let's quickly cover what to do if you don't want a face for your quadruped. Select the neck and head bones and press H to hide them, and then just box select over all of these bones. Make sure that everything is selected, including this bone, which is called face, and then press X and delete all bones. I won't do it here, but this is how you can remove all face bones. Also, if I go to object mode, press Shift A and go to the basic meta rigs, we also have a basic quadruped where the head is already removed and also there are no finger bones. So if you have a simpler character, you may want to use this. Let's unhide everything. And next I'm going to focus on aligning the legs. So let's start with the front legs. Let's enable X symmetry. And then I'm going to actually select all leg bones, including this scapula bone or shoulder bone, and this breastbone, and again press Shift H to clean up the view, and that will just make it easier to work. So again, I'll display an image showing the anatomy of the dog. So the shoulder bone, which is actually a scapula, should be positioned like this. Then the rest of the leg I can select and scale down and move into place, and then start positioning the individual points. This is the upper leg for the dog. This is the lower leg and extends down to here. Then we have this bone, which is basically the palm if you compare it to a human. And this is the toes, and I'm going to extend it all the way to here because this becomes a point of rotation in the final rig. So it is important to place it somewhere around here. Then we have these palm and finger bones. I'll position them roughly. And actually, we have to look through the front view and select all bones like this and move them a little bit on the x-axis. Maybe rotate a little bit. As with the human, I'm trying to avoid moving these bones in the x-axis because a little bit of an offset is fine, but if you move it too much, the bending of the leg may become weird. Slight adjustments like this, and then we can focus on the fingers. I can hide some bones here. I think things got a little bit disconnected here. I'll isolate and zoom in on the palm, switch to vertex snapping, and I can move this bone and snap it to the palm bone. And this palm bone, I'll snap to the finger it belongs to. And then I'll select these bones and rotate and move and scale them into place. Check everything from multiple views. This is looking okay to me, but of course you can use the volume snapping technique as we practiced in the previous lesson, and just move the bones and make sure that they're positioned correctly. Don't forget the rule that we established. Finger bones need to be straight from the top view and slightly bent from the side view, which I do by switching to normal orientation and then squashing the bone chain on the x-axis. I'll press Alt H and maybe work a little bit on this breastbone. This is what I call a support bone. It doesn't have much of a function except that it helps when we apply automatic weights. So if you want to reduce the number of bones in your rig, you can delete this and maybe do some additional weight painting. In this case, I guess I'll keep it and place it around here in the chest of the character near the front legs. Let's take care of the lower leg. I'll select the left side, press Shift H to isolate it and position it. And again, let's pay attention to the anatomy. This is the upper leg. This here is the lower leg. This would be considered a foot bone in a human. And this is the toes. So dogs and most other animals walk on their toes. That is why their foot kind of looks inverted, but really it is not inverted, it's just that the foot is raised. Now I'll look from the back view and align the bones. And then I'll hide the main leg and quickly work on the finger and palm bones. It is exactly the same as on the front legs, so I'll speed up the footage here. Okay, looking good. Let's align these pelvis bones, which are support bones just like the breastbones here. The body bones are looking good, so we can focus on the face now. Believe it or not, the face rig of this dog is the exact same face rig as for the human that we rigged in the previous chapter. There are a lot of face bones here, and they can be quite messy, so it is a good idea to hide most of the other bones so that they don't get in the way. So select all body bones and hide them. Then in the middle of the face, you'll see this face bone. It's an important bone, but we don't need to align it. Its position doesn't matter, so I'm going to hide it. Then these are the ears. These ears are good for humans and also for pointy ears. For this type of droopy ears, they are not perfect, but we'll make them work. But for now, let's move them a little bit to the side and hide them. Then from the front view, select all of the right side bones. Keep the bones in the middle, but all bones on the right side I want to select and H to hide. Now this is much cleaner and it should be easier to work with. Now from the side view, again, I'm going to try to align all of the bones that are right in the middle. This connection of bones you may recognize as the tip of the nose. So place it like this on the tip of the nose, and this at the end of the nose, and this connection somewhere here at the end of the muzzle. This is the side of the nose. These two bones run along the nose, and this one is below the nose, so between the nose and the mouth. This here is the middle part of the upper lip, so place it like this. This here defines the chin. Do not place this bone too far along the chin, because it will start affecting the body. Something like this is good in my opinion. This is the middle of the lower lip, and let's also align this part of the lower lip and this part of the upper lip. This is the teeth bone, the top teeth, so let's align them roughly and hide the bone. And let's find the lower teeth. Here it is. Align it with the bottom teeth and hide it. Then find the three bones of the tongue and align them. Here I can kind of see through the mesh, and I think the tongue looks something like this. Yeah. Now I can also hide the tongue bones. Then grab this connection of many bones, and this is the edge of the mouth. So let's position it at the edge. And then position these bones in a balanced way. These bones here are the eyebrow, as it were. So let's place them a little bit up. So I'm just aligning the bones in the side view, and we'll need to align them again from the perspective view or front view. These 4 bones sit between the eyebrow and the upper eyelid. This is the eye bone and the eyelid bones, so I'll position them roughly. And this is looking good for the side view. I'm going to start snapping the bones now. I will switch to face snapping. And by the way, you may think that these 2 bones are not enough to cover the mouth of the dog because it is much longer than a human mouth, and there are animals with even longer mouths. Now, we can subdivide these bones and add additional bones, but do not do it just yet. This has to be done after we upgrade the rig. We'll get to that, I'm just letting you know that it's possible. So now in perspective view, and with snapping set to face, start selecting connections between bones and then holding Control and snapping them on the surface where they belong. Just leave the middle bones alone, right? So this here and all of the nose bones we won't touch. This on the other side I have to snap, then this next, and this connection here. Now let's align these bones with the brow. Dogs do not have brows like humans do, but they kind of do. Next, let's take care of these bones. Just snap them. Just snap them on the surface. Then the actual eye. Then the eyelids. By the way, if you don't like the transparency of X-ray, you can disable it and maybe enable in front on the viewport display. Whatever works for you, but personally I like X-ray. Except when I don't. Okay, now let me select the eye of the dog. Isolate it, go to edit mode and select this middle edge loop. Press Shift S, cursor to select it. Go out of local mode, select my meta rig, select the eye bone, Shift S, selection to cursor. This bone looks quite big for this eye. You may be tempted to make it smaller like this, but that may not be a good idea because as you saw in the previous chapter, this also affects the distance and size of the eye's control. So keep it big like this, and we may even have to make it bigger. But for now, keep it like this. One thing that I want to check really carefully is the position of the jaw. And looking at my reference here, this point, which will become the pivot point of the jaw, should be closer to the eye. Something like this. And then I'll tweak the nearby bones a little bit. Now let's press Alt-H to unhide the remaining bones. And even though the right side was hidden, because I have X-axis mirror enabled, these bones will be already aligned for me. I guess I can move these bones a little bit higher. And now let's see what we can do about the ears. I'm going to go to pose mode and find the top bone for the ears. Top bone means that it moves all of the other bones. So it's this bone. I'm going to place the 3D cursor here on the base of the ear, press Shift S selection to cursor, and then rotate the ear a little bit and scale it up, I guess. Scaling the bones like this looks weird, but trust me, it's okay. Now I'm going to enable X symmetry for pose mode, and then just press G and then R, and that will symmetrize the other side. And now I can press Ctrl A, apply pose as rest pose. And the bones are now uniformly scaled. When I apply the pose as rest pose, all bones scale is normalized, and that is exactly what we want. Now I'll disable in front and go to edit mode and snap these bones here on the surface of the ear. Something like this should work. Now I'll press Alt H to unhide everything. And this is our basic alignment. Before we generate the final rig, we also want to upgrade the face rig. So if you're sure that your bone alignment is good, press upgrade face rig and confirm. Again, if you need to make tweaks after the update, make sure that you carefully select any connected bones and move them together. Now, a very important tweak that we can do after the upgrade is adding more bones for the mouth. And also in other areas, but you have to be careful. Some areas shouldn't be tweaked, some can be tweaked. You should learn about the modular skin types, and when you understand them, you'll know what can be tweaked and what not. And I'll definitely consider making an advanced course about that. But now the lip bones can be subdivided, so I'll select these two lip bones on the edge, right click and subdivide, and for number of cuts here, I'll choose 2. I think having 4 bones for each side of the lip should be enough. Then I'll turn on X-ray and start aligning these bones. So again, I'm in face snapping. I carefully select connected bones, move them and hold Control so that they snap on the surface of the mesh. And now I can actually generate the rig. It generated without errors. If you did have any errors, they are most likely, if I go back to the meta rig, the most likely reasons for errors are the neck. If it is disconnected, you'll get an error. Something like bone position is disjoint. And then you have to switch to vertex snapping and snap these points. Same here. If you disconnect the spine from the tail, just snap it back again and it will generate without problems. And the other possible problem, which may be more difficult to troubleshoot, is the face, but it is the same thing. If any of these bones is disconnected, you'll get errors, but the error will tell you which bone was disconnected. So paying attention to the bone names here, find the bone that is in the error message, and that will be the bone that is disconnected, and you have to connect it again like this. That should take care of about 90% of possible generation issues. Now in object mode, I'll select the main dog mesh, shift select the generated rig, press Ctrl P, and choose with automatic weights. And we got bone heat weighting error. That is the error that I mentioned in the previous chapter. And here it is. It is quite common, so you have to know how to deal with it. Again, I have a separate video showing about 10 different solutions to this problem because different characters react to different troubleshooting. But in this case, here's what you can do. If you start scaling up the rig now, the dog will scale up with it. And so if you press S and then type 100 on the numpad and then enter, the rig will be scaled up 100 times if I select the dog and shift select the rig, and again parent with automatic weights, it will actually work. So this is one of the solutions. You just make your objects really huge. You have to trust me, it actually worked, but the dog shrunk down to its original size, whereas the rig is still huge. So here's what you do. Select your dog, press Alt-P, clear parent, then select the rig and press Alt-S to reset the scale. Then select the dog, shift select the rig, press Ctrl-P, and choose Armature Deform. Now if I go to pose mode and try to move some of the controls, you'll see that the rig is controlling the mesh. So bone heat weighting problem fixed, we can move on. Let's take a second to check out some of the controls. By default, both legs are in IK mode, and you can move this IK control and control the leg. You can rotate it as well. And here you have an additional control which controls the foot of the dog. And this is the toe control. And in here you will have individual finger controls. It is very similar on the back leg. Move, rotate, then you have this additional control. And of course this controls the orientation of the upper leg. You can press toggle pole here to enable the pole target if you prefer it. I'll disable it now. Then you have the torso control. You have hips and chest. So it is the same spine as in the human, it is just horizontal. Here you can control the clavicle, and it seems to be affecting way too much of the mesh, which is a simple weight painting issue. So now let's move on to the head, hide the meta rig, and this is the jawbone, and rotate it, I can close the mouth. I'll need to tweak some of these additional controls to close the mouth properly. But we are getting really nice deformations out of the box here. So here, these 4 control bones correspond to the 4 bones that we subdivided for each part of the lip. So this is the effect of subdividing these bones. We have this nose control, which is a lot more useful in the dog than in the human, I think. The eyes behave well, but they affect too much of this area. This can be fixed with weights. This is the eye target. Let's enable materials. And we haven't applied weights to the eyes and teeth yet, so let's do that now. Actually, in pose mode, I'll select everything and go to pose, clear transform all to reset my rig. I'll hide the main dog mesh. Select the eyes, upper teeth, lower teeth, and the whiskers. Shift select the rig, press Ctrl P, and choose empty groups. This will connect the meshes and the rig, but will not apply any weights. So just like for the human, I'll go to the eyes, go to edit mode, and I can place the mouse over this eye and press L to select all vertices. Then here under data vertex groups, I will search for eye, find eye.L and click assign. Then Alt A to deselect, L to select the other eye, select IR and assign. Then go to the upper teeth, edit mode, select all vertices, look for teeth, find teeth.T, assign. Then lower teeth, select everything, highlight teeth.B and assign. Now unhide everything, maybe hide the meta rig. And now the teeth are moving with the jaw. Nice. And also the eyes are moving and looking at the eye target. I think the displacement of the eyelids when the eyes move is again very cartoonish, just like for the human. So I'll try to adjust it. One thing that we haven't handled yet are the whiskers. And we'll try to assign weights using data transfer. So select the whiskers, go to modifiers, click on add modifier, edit, data transfer, and place it above the armature modifier. Use the picker to pick the dog body. Enable vertex data, expand it and enable vertex groups. Click on generate data layers. And now, if I go to the rig and move it, the whiskers are moving with the rig. And if I move some of these parts, you'll see how they quite realistically move with the skin. So I think this was successful. I'll go to object mode, select the whiskers, and apply this modifier. If you do not apply it, things can get weird because it's a live modifier and the weights may change on the fly as you animate your dog. That is not what you want, so apply it and the weights will become permanent. I think things are in a really good shape. Even the ears work quite well. So this is the main control for the ear. We have these additional controls here. I wasn't expecting the ear to work that well. So let's do some weight painting to fix some of the main issues. For example, here the ear is affecting too much of the skull. The eyes can use some work. This shoulder bone as well. And one thing that I want to fix on the meta rig level, let's unhide it and select the eye bone and reduce follow Z to about 0.3 and then go to the other eye and also set it to 0.3 and generate the rig again. Yeah, now the eyelids react a little bit less to the eye movement. I think the weights are simply too strong still, so we can improve this even more with weights work. Let's enable the DEF collection. Select the rig, shift select the mesh and go to weight paint mode. I'll work on the ears first. Alt click on this bone. Enable auto normalize. Symmetry is already enabled. Hopefully it works well. Reduce the strength a little bit. Press F to adjust the brush size. In the weight paint options, enable active under 0 weights. And actually, let's switch to the edge brush. Reduce the strength a little bit and control and click to remove weights from the skull. I'll enable wireframe because it enables me to see things a little bit better, and then shift and click to blur these weights. And for the other ear bones, I'll also control and click to remove the influence. I mean the influence outside of the ear itself. If I alt click on the control and try to rotate it a little bit, things are starting to look good. Let's remove this influence as well. And shift and click to blur a little bit. Oh, here we have a lot of influence. Let's remove it. And blur. Blur a little bit as well. Here I'm toggling the overlays on and off to see what I'm doing better. The pivot of rotation of this ear may not be perfect, so you can go back to the meta rig and adjust the ears a little bit. But I think if I paint some weights for the skull here, for the head bone, it will make it look a little bit better. And then blur a little bit. Yeah, this is looking good. I'll call it done. And symmetry seems to be working, so the other side is also nice. Now let's look at the eyelids. Now these lower eyelids definitely affect too much of the skin below, so control click. And then blur the weights a little bit. The upper lids are not as problematic because we have other bones nearby, so the weights didn't go too far into other parts of the mesh. So I'll just select these and blur the weights a little bit, which basically reduces them. Okay, now the eye movement and eyelid deformations are better. So we can also work a little bit here on the shoulder. It seems to affect way too much of the body. So I think the easiest way to handle this is to just enable the actual shoulder bone and start removing weights by control clicking. And because we have auto normalize, this process will add the weights that we remove to close by bones. I'll reduce the strength by a lot and then control click here a little bit, and actually shift and click to smooth. Now smoothing doesn't work because this bone doesn't have any influence at all, so let's add a little bit of influence and then smooth. And now if I select the control, it should be a little bit better. I think we can remove even more influence. Smooth some more. And I guess I'll call this dog rigging session done. Something that I think I forgot to mention is the controls for the tail. So if you go to pose mode, of course you have your individual controls, but you also have this main tail control, which can create a tail wagging effect. And of course you have tweak bones. Almost all Rigify parts have tweak bones, which you can use for cartoony effects, but also sometimes for non-cartoony effects. For example, if I grab this control and press S to scale it very, very lightly, it may give the appearance of breathing. Maybe this one. So that was dog rigging with Rigify, and you can apply this same technique to most other animals. But on top of that, if you just understand a little bit of animal anatomy, specifically the 3 common types of animal legs, you will be able to rig any animal with confidence. That is why I made a bonus chapter all about rigging different quadrupeds. So in this bonus video, you'll get some anatomical theory, and then I'll show you how to rig a horse and a bear with Rigify. The bonus video is only available on academy.cgdive.com. Until the end of January 2024, the course will be in early access, so you will have to pay $3.99 USD to access the course, or you can subscribe for just $5.99 and gain access to all courses. These are great ways to support CG Dive. And then from around February 2024, the course will become completely free. So if you're from the future, just go to academy.cgdive.com and enjoy all of the lessons of this course, including the bonuses, without any commercials, without any distractions. I hope to see you there.